week 9 of the Bill Nees Coaches Show. I'm your host, Chip Hare. With us is Coach Bill Nees. And Coach, last week was a little different, a lot of different ways, but boy, it ended in a good way with the Indians picking up a big win over Butler at the last home game, senior night, 33-27 on Thursday night and Thursday night lights.
Yeah, big game, and went back and forth. I think the offense played well. I think the defense played well. I think the offense played okay. I think the defense played okay. It was kind of a mixture of everything. Special teams were good. Special teams were bad in a couple circumstances. Bottom line is, at the very end of it, we made the last big play of the night. Smees was able to strip the ball, and we got the win.
When you look at it right from the get-go, they came out with a vengeance. We found ourselves down 2 touchdowns, 13-0, and our guys came back and made some big plays. Again, the Austin Davis Shrub connection throughout the night was certainly big, but certainly put us back up on top 14-13 going into half.
Yeah, it was, and it was no surprise to us that they came out on fire because they're a good football team. We've had the chance to watch them on film quite a bit this year, and the schedule they have played, to play one of the top Division I teams around here in Northmont, and to play one of the top Division I teams in the entire state, Massillon Perry. Both of those teams were very good competition, and they obviously helped lead Vandalia up to the experienced football team that they brought in here Thursday night.
Well, when you look at that game, in particular, you talk about seniors or senior leadership of Austin Davis, Hayden Shrub, and Ben Schmeezing. All three made big plays. You talk about the strip, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, but those three guys really made their thumbprint on the game itself. Obviously, a lot of other people did, but certainly big plays throughout the game, which really gave us momentum, not to just win the game, but to really kind of keep that moving into week 9.
Yeah, they did, and that's something that they've done the whole year, and that's what you live by. You live by. When I first started coaching, I had a couple of the older coaches that said something to me about you live and die with seniors, and it kind of went in one out there. For me. But the further I do this, the more I realize that to really be good, your seniors have to be your leaders, and your seniors have to have their best year. Because I know sometimes we've had seniors that probably were a little bit better, maybe their junior year than they were their senior year. I think those three guys are, in addition to a lot of our other seniors, including Derek Height, Sam Harrington, Cale Maxstroth, are having the best years of their career right now as a senior, which is perfect. Colton Meyer, another example, and Big Lem on the offensive line, Jimmy Congdon, Bushnell. All those guys are examples of guys having their best years as seniors.
Bushnell, you talk about Bushnell and Congdon. I think about those two guys just in the plays that I saw. Congdon comes up with a big tackle on a big key part in the game, and Bushnell gets a deflection in the end zone to prevent them getting a touchdown.
Deflection also came up with this, I believe it's his first interception of the year. So he had two major plays. His interception, we went down and scored, so that was a game changer right there. And then his deflection in the end zone was outstanding. Indians
on the last play comes down to Butler's driving, and then there was the actual strip, and then Ben Schmeezing pulls it out, which was maybe he's had a lot of big plays. That certainly probably has got to be in his top 5 of all time, and to get that one live on television was also very special.
It was great. They mixed a little bit of short pass down the field, and it wasn't really bothered that much. But then we had a play where we had about 4 or 5 people miss a tackle, and they got about 18 yards on it. And at that point, I'm thinking, we might have to start blitzing. And once you start blitzing, then you're going to start opening up some other things, because we couldn't just sit back and let that guy pick us apart, because he's a pretty good quarterback. And as I was pondering all those things in my head, talking to the assistant coaches and everything, the next thing I know, Smees strips that ball out. It's like, hey, don't worry about it anymore. You're done for the game. Yeah, done for the game. Thanks, Smees. Appreciate it.
We talked about in the onset before the game how athletic their wideouts were, and how big they had some big linemen. But that's a good football team. They play Sydney. Not that we want to talk a lot about that, but they could give Sydney some fits.
I think they can give. They're going to give anybody some fits. They've got 2 games left, and as I said, when you sit and watch a game, when we watch games on film, it doesn't have their record on the film. All we see is that team playing, and that team playing pretty well. I think everybody else just goes over and they just brand a team by the record. Hey, you've only got 2 wins. Hey, you've only got 3 wins. That type deal. And one of the other key things coming up to again this week with Tip City is that Fairborn's out there, and Fairborn has been giving everybody fits, this past year, and Fairborn, if you'd look at them, you'd say, well, they don't have a very good record, but they're close in every game. They have a good scheme. They have a lot of talent, and it's just an example of how week in, week out in the GWAC, you got to be ready to go.
Well, speaking of that, we move into week 9, which would tip us to go, no pun intended, to Tip City for another matchup with them from a rematch from last year where we won in the first league matchup, I should say, 28-21. Again, if you look at records, you can't brand them. They are an outstanding ball club with a lot of weapons.
They are, and we saw them on TV last week. We saw them, in the regular season with our film exchange and things along those lines. I think they had maybe 3 or 4 teams on their schedule that are currently playoff contenders. From Bellbrook, the first game of the season, they tangled with Northmont. They gave Troy everything they could handle on, at their game, and obviously some other games. So I think Tip City is a solid football team. They're like every GWAC football team. They're well coached. They're well conditioned. They know what they're doing, and you better be ready to play.
We'll talk a little about their offense, which a lot of people recognize the winning tee. But boy, they got a lot of weapons out of that, and they keep people on their toes and keep them off guard a little bit.
They do.
Bar horse runner.
Yeah, they keep you on your toes. They got the outside attack, they got the inside attack, they got the vertical up and back attack. So they conflict you in a lot of different places. And in the meantime, they'll mix in some shifts, they'll mix in some motions, they'll mix in some other type of fake motion where they're going to try to draw you off sides. So they want to control the tempo. And what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that we're disciplined. We've got great discipline with our eyes, and we got great tackling. And I think if we do those 2 things, we'll be able to put ourselves in a position to at least slow them down.
Well, I think when you look at the Bar Horse, as we were talking about their back, and if you watched that game a couple weeks ago on Thursday Night Lights, you saw that he almost single-handedly beat Sydney in just a big night. But their quarterback, they've also got some guys that just make good decisions.
They do, and they're a team that knows what they're doing. I told our team, I said, we kind of think we know what we're doing. They know what they're doing. They know what they want to do. This is how they play offense. This is how they play defense. They play a 50 defense. They have a little independent movement. They drop their ends when they want to drop their ends. They don't let you dictate how they're going to do it. They try to dictate themselves how they're going to play the game. And their special teams are very sound. They got great return guys. Anytime someone returns kickoffs like that for a touchdown, that's got to be an attention grabber.
Thursday Night Lights, you said something that, speaking of social media, got retweeted quite a bit over and over and over again. And I'll paraphrase what you said, but I think it'd be a good topic to discuss is each game becomes a little bit more relevant. We become more relevant because each game gets bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. We don't want to look beyond this week, but this week here, we're in a position where we take care of business. We put ourselves in a position to continue to make the next game even much more larger than it is.
Oh yes, it was, and that's what happens as soon as you get into GWAC play. As soon as you get into GWAC play, you win your first one, you win your second one, and all of a sudden now you're in the picture. And to stay in the picture, now you got to win the third one, and it just continues to go on. So we've got one more game where we got to make sure we take care of business if we can take care of business, and then that'll put us in a position to possibly be able to play for everything. And it's not looking ahead. I think it's looking at possibly motivating you a little bit more this week. If you're not already motivated enough to make sure and understand the picture of what's taking place next week. One thing about our players, one thing about our coaches is they're fairly well informed about what's going on. So sometimes if you want to put your head in the sand and say, well, no, we don't want to do that's not really the case. You got to make sure that everybody understands what's going on, you recognize things. And that doesn't mean we're getting away from our 7-day plan. Our 7-day plan is our 7-day plan. A 7-day plan is only effective if it works for those 7 days to create another 7 days. And that's our cycle that we talk about around here.
When you look at the grand scheme of things, after the Sydney game, and you win a couple games, now you start to see a little bit more light in that crystal ball, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And people have paid attention, obviously now, and we're saying, hey, you know what, the Indians, once again, they're back in, they're for real.
Yeah, and that's the position we want to be in. We want to be in a position where we get ourselves ready to go. We play. Well, unfortunately, we lost a couple close games, and the good news is we still have a chance to make something happen. We still have a chance. We still have that, and even if you don't, just the fact that you're putting on a uniform and you've prepared for an entire year. If it was a different position that we're in, and we've been in that sometimes, the fact that you've prepared for a year. For a lot of kids, it's their senior year. A lot of parents, it's their son's, daughter's senior year. And when you put on that uniform, every week, every 7 days, it's got to be special.
Well, speaking of special, speaking of seniors, good segue into our senior spotlight. Our two senior spotlights this week is Ben Bynum and Rob Comstock. Both guys have had a unique role. Rob Comstock, last couple of years, has been our place kicker. Done a very solid job, but I think up until this year, I don't know that he's missed an extra point. I know he missed Friday night's game. Might have missed one, but his percentage is pretty high. Yeah,
he's been very consistent for us, and he was our kicker last year, this year, and hopefully we'll continue to get that type of consistency.
Ben Bynum, there's a guy who's been a big part of the program for a lot of years. Particularly the last couple of years, unfortunately goes down with a foot injury in the warm-ups of the West Carrollton game, which we had been battling, I know, in the preseason.
Yeah.
Ben's, Ben's been great, not just as a leader, but he's also been good for pickle football, not just this year, but in years previous.
Yeah, he's been a 3-year starter for us. This will be the first time he doesn't make All-League, which is amazing because he could have been a 3-time All-League first-team player. His leadership, he had fire, he had intensity, he had all that stuff that we enjoy out of a football player. And it's really tough to see him on the sideline not being able to share that. And I know he's with us, and I know that type of stuff. But a kid like that really wants to be out there, and it's really hard sometimes to see a kid who's worked their whole senior year and then something like that happen in the middle of the year. But the good news is he was able to play some pretty good football, actually really good football for us at the beginning of the year. So he did get maybe 3 or 4 games out of his senior year. So hopefully he gets healed up.
Those are the hard ones to watch. Those kids that put the year in, year out. They're usually the first ones here, last one to leave in the weight room, and not just during football season, but out of season. There was a guy who really put the work in, and people say, "Oh, it's a shame," but to really see that every day and you see the disappointment, and he really handled it very well. For as committed and as emotional as he can be, he really handled that whole thing well. And in fact, I said that to his parents, and I just think he's just really showed. I think that's a testimony to his leadership.
It is, and like I can't say it enough that you feel bad for the whole situation because of the amount of time he's put in and the amount of effort he's put in and everything. Just every time you look over at him during a game or during practice or something, you just go, man, that's unnecessary sometimes why that has to happen. But who can explain these injuries?
No, it's game football. I know it's injuries, and I know we can go through the many of players through the years that have been in that situation, but we hope that we can continue to stay healthy. Tip City on Friday night. We will play at Tip City, kickoff at 7 p.m. Coach, we appreciate your being with us, and we certainly wish you luck on Friday.
All right, thank you.
That is it for the Bill Nees' Coaches Show. We will see you next week here on Week 10. Thanks for being with us tonight.